Hey everyone, welcome to my classroom. If this was real life, you would all be doing a real dissection, but unfortunately we are in distance learning, so I'm going to bring the dissection to you. So this is a sheep heart, it comes from the inside of a sheep. It's about the same size as a human heart, maybe just a little bit smaller. So like they say, about the size of a fist or a fist and a hand over it. So this is the outside of the heart. As you can see, it's covered with fat. All the yellow stuff is the fat. And then on the gray part or brown part, that's the muscle. So there's muscle underneath the fat. This muscle looks really brown because it's been stored in a preservation fluid for actually a couple of years. If it was a fresh heart, it would look bright red or bright kind of pinkish red. Kind of like when you buy a steak at the store. When it's rare and you haven't cooked it yet, it's red or pink. And then once you cook it, it turns brown. So even though this hasn't been cooked, it's still turned brown, so it kind of looks the same. So I just want you to get a view of the outside. The bottom part is the ventricles. That's where most of the muscle is. And then the top part are the blood vessels that come out of the heart, that carries blood into and out of the heart. So if I use my little poker tool here, you can see this is one giant blood vessel. It's a hole, and I can put it all the way in, and it leads to one of the chambers on the inside of the heart. Here's another blood vessel right here. And there's one over here you can kind of see. So they're kind of elasticy walls. They're really thick, and that's what carries the blood. So you got your blood vessels all coming out the top. Remember, the bottom is all the muscle. And then our two atria, these two brown looking things, like I say, they look like little puppy ears or dog ears. They kind of have the ruffly edges. Those are the two atria. They lead to the atrium on the inside that collects the blood that's entering into the heart. So I'm gonna hold the heart here so you can see the front. Oh, I forgot to mention the wrinkles are all spaces where the coronary arteries and coronary veins sit. Those are the blood vessels that bring oxygen and nutrients to the heart muscle itself. Those are the ones that if you clog them from poor diet and lack of exercise, and you get fat on the inside of those arteries, that's what can lead to a heart attack, because those arteries are providing this muscle, the heart muscle itself, with the oxygen and nutrients to be able to contract and to pump blood. So this is the front. I'm going to kind of hold it steady here. You need to draw a picture of the front, outside, external part of the heart. So that's the very front. I'll pause it for a moment if you want to pause it on the video. And then if you want another view, we'll pause for a moment right here. You can pause it on the video to look at the top of the heart. And then we'll do one more. This is the back side of the heart. So we can pause here for a moment if you want to draw different views of the external part of the heart. Okay, so next we're going to cut into it with our scalpel. This is a surgical grade scalpel, so you have to be very careful with the instruments because it can cut through human skin. It's meant to cut through human skin because these are surgical scalpels. This one's already been cut because this is take 2. So we're just gonna pretend like I'm cutting through the heart. It's pretty tough to cut through because it's solid muscle, but I would be kind of cutting all along, trying to get as close to the center as I can to evenly cut it into 2. So this is the area where I cut it. And then when you open it up, this is what it looks like on the inside. So we're gonna just look at the back half of the heart. So this was the front of the heart, right? If it's sitting in my chest like this, sorry. If I remove the front, now we're looking at the back. This is the view that you guys are looking at when you're labeling the heart picture. So the chambers, you've got a ventricle here, and then above it, up here where my finger is going, the atrium. Atrium is much smaller than the ventricle. So you have an opening, a space here. It's not really even, so it's kind of hard to see the space right there. And then there's all this tissue, which is the valve in between. It's hard to see on this side. So you've got atrium up here, valve, and then the ventricle is here. So that's the right atrium, the tricuspid valve, and the right ventricle. And then the other side is easier to see. Up here is the left atrium. This whole space here is the left atrium. And then this is the valve. This little flap right here is the bicuspid valve. It kind of got torn when I was cutting into it, so it's not really fully intact, but this is the valve itself. These are all the strings that are holding the valve down. And then right here, this is the space for the left ventricle that fills up with blood. So you have right ventricle, left ventricle on the bottom, right atrium up here, left atrium on the top with the valve separating them. Something you might notice is it's not very symmetrical, right? Meaning it's not even on both sides. So all of this thick muscle surrounds the left ventricle. It's thicker than the right ventricle muscle. And that's because this ventricle muscle has to be stronger to be able to squeeze harder to push the blood up and out the aorta to go out to the whole body. The right side doesn't have to be as strong. It's a little bit weaker, so it's a thinner muscle, because when it contracts, it only has to send blood through the pulmonary artery to the lungs, and the lungs aren't very far away. So you don't need to contract very hard with the right ventricle. You need most of your force being on the left side to push the blood out to your body to get all the way down to your fingers and toes. So I'm gonna pause here so you can stop and pause it on your video so that you can draw a picture of the internal anatomy of the heart.